So, a pogrom is a term that refers to attacks on Jewish populations by local non-Jewish peoples in the Russian Empire and other countries, primarily in Eastern Europe. According to the United States Holocaust Memorial, in Russian, pogrom means to wreak havoc or demolish violently. Anti-Jewish violence in the Russian Empire is rare before 1881. The pogroms of 1881 and 1882, occurring within the southernmost provinces of the Russian Empire, Innermost movement, as most began in large cities, spreading to surrounding villages. Violence was largely directed against the property of Jews rather than their persons. In the course of more than 250 individual events, millions of rubles worth of Jewish property, rubles are Russian currency, is a form of Russian currency, rubles worth of Jewish property was destroyed. The number of fatalities is disputed, but may have been as few as 50 who were killed when troops opened fire on rioting mobs. The first pogrom in the 1881 and 1882 series happened in modern-day Ukraine, the week following Easter 1881, caused by the unsettling times after Emperor Alexander II was assassinated in 1881. A serious pogrom occurred in Kiev on April 26, 1919, which lasted for 3 days, spread to villages in Kiev and surrounding provinces. Violence continued sporadically until winter. Pogroms like this continued throughout what is now known as Ukraine and Russia up until 1990. One of the largest examples of pogroms in Russia was the Russian Civil War. The war was waged and motivated by multiple reasons, led by multiple armies. The Red and White Army is motivated by politics, Ukrainians and Polish nationalism and social protest with the Green Army. The absence of any strong central authority ensured that the entire civilian population was victimized by one military force or another. All the contending armies, regular or irregular, conducted pogroms against Jewish communities. Only the commanders of the Red Army occasionally punished troops guilty of pogrom mongering. The white forces often used anti-Semitism as a tool for ideological mobilization. Two groups were particularly prone to pogroms: the anti-Bolshevik volunteer army commanded by General Anton Ivanovich Denikin and forces loyal to the Ukrainian national government, the so-called Directory, headed by Simon Petluria. The irregular forces fighting in the name of the Directory, the Ottomans, were particularly notorious for anti-Jewish murder, torture, and rape. Anti-pogrom declarations issued by the Directory were decreed by Jewish groups just for show. In fact, the Directory had little control over the forces fighting in its name. Ideology, no doubt, played some role in prompting pogroms. Much of the violence was accompanied by the collapse of government authority, years of inhumane warfare, and a criminal desire to loot and plunder. There are sharply differing estimates on the total number of Jewish casualties during the Civil War, but the minimum credible estimate is 50,000 fatalities. Another was known as the Einsatzgruppen. The Einsatzgruppen were special SS mobile formations tasked with carrying out the mass murder of Jews, communist functionaries, and other deemed unfit to live by the Nazis. The most infamous Einsatzgruppen took place in Russia in the spring of 1941. Hitler issued an order to have the secret police and secret services assist the army in combating resistance behind the front lines. Einsatzgruppen general form, or method of execution, was shootings, although some gas fans were occasionally used, so they chopped them into bands and gassed them. The victims were ordered to report to a central location or rounded up and organized manhunts, sometimes using local militia. Usually they're taken to remote spots and shot. Nazi soldiers would frequently use ravines or old anti-tank trenches during executions. None were present, then the Nazi soldiers would make their victims dig their own graves. After World War II, there were attacks on Jewish populations in Russia, notably in the city of Kielce on July 4th, 1946. In this attack, 40 Jews were killed by a mob. The attack was spawned from the brutalization of society in Poland during the war and the impact of Nazi anti-Semitism. Fear of pogroms became an unfortunately integral part of Eastern European Jewish life in the late period of the Soviet Union. This led to certain anti-Semitism groups spreading rumors of pogroms in cities such as Moscow and St. Petersburg in 1989 and 1990. A wide variety of attacks upon Jews have been characterized as pogroms. Because of it, the diversity makes it impossible to attribute the violence to one set of specific factors. It can be said that, contrary to the stereotype, pogroms were seldom the works of government. They tended to occur in times of political crisis when the usual restraints of governments and standards of civil conduct were weak or non-existent. On the opposite side of the world, or in the Pacific Theater in World War II, whichever suits your fancy, the Grand United States of America was engaged in a war against the Japanese. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, Japanese began to invade the Philippines and, within a month, had captured Manila, the capital of the Philippines. American and Filipino defenders of Luzon, the island where Manila is located, retreated to the Bataan Peninsula. Defenders held out for 3 months without naval and air support. And then United States General Edward King Jr. surrendered on April 9, 1942, along with approximately 75,000 troops. This began the Bataan Death March. Mainly starting in Mariveles on the southern tip of the Bataan Peninsula, the prisoners were forced to march north to San Fernando and then taken by rail in cramped, unsanitary boxcars further north to Capas. From there, they walked an additional 7 miles to Camp O'Donnell, a former Philippine Army training center used by the Japanese military to imprison Filipino and American prisoners. During the May March, which lasted 5 to 10 days, depending on when a prisoner joined it, the captives were beaten, shot, bayoneted, and in many cases, beheaded. A large number of those who made it to the camp later died of starvation disease. Only 54,000 prisoners reached the camp, though the exact numbers are unknown. I'm done.